All right, so welcome to our podcast Through the Lens. I've got Greg Olsen here, star football player, now star announcer, also founder and started the Heartest Yard. So super happy to have you on here today. So thanks a lot for coming in.
Yeah, appreciate you having me.
Yeah, of course. So one of the things I always am super intrigued by is people's ability to reinvent themselves professionally or personally. And grow through time. And I think like one of the most impressive things I see in you as I've really kind of followed your career, college to professional to now as an announcer, is your continued ability to kind of reinvent yourself over and over again. I guess, how do you do it? Like, what advice would you give somebody at any age level that wants to make a big fundamental change in their life and reinvent themselves? How have you done it so well, and what would you tell somebody?
I think, as I kind of look through my transition, obviously for my entire life, what I was a athlete, right? I was a football player, but even when I was young, I was an athlete. I always saw myself through the lens of sports, and I always saw myself through the lens of sports performance. And I think as I got older and you start realizing like the more you keep your frame of, perspective, the more narrow it is, the more you kind of lessen your ability to be open to what new opportunities present themselves. So I think as I got older and towards kind of the middle of my career, I started kind of expanding my horizon a little bit and saying, okay, what other things out there interest me? What other things out there may I have an ability to kind of explore and an ability to pursue? And I think that open-minded of, when things come your way, you can't always really predict it. You don't know what's exactly going to happen, but you can be ready when things do happen. And that's kind of what happened to me with the whole, commentating thing. I never at one point in my career said, you know what, I'm going to start dedicating myself because when I'm done, I'm going to be a broadcaster. I never once had that. It was really just opportunities came to me. I got invited to go do an audition. I got invited to go sit in a back room studio where not a soul in the world outside a couple executives ever saw it and never made air. But I was open-minded. I said, yeah, I'll give it a shot. And I didn't know if I was going to be good at it or not. But I think that, so I think to answer your question, I think being open to new things, to be open to new challenges, to go outside of your comfort zone, which for me, that very much was so. I was a performer. I was an athlete. I was very good and very secure and knew exactly what to do in that world. But I didn't have a lot of other talents. I wasn't a businessman. I wasn't exposed to a lot of other things. I knew one area, and that was sports. So for me to kind of go outside of that lane was scary. It was new. It was challenging. It was like learning a new job, at the age of 30. And, but I'm glad I did it. I think having that open-mindedness and being open to doing it is what allowed me to say, not only do I have the opportunity to do it, but I think I could do this at a pretty good level and make a second career out of it.
What you have, where do you think so many athletes struggle with getting that transition that you made? Is it not open-minded? They think it's going to last forever. There's so many, I think, nuances there, but we're all doing now. You're doing, some of these guys are doing it at a high level. It seems so natural, right? I mean, you want Fox News like practically your whole life, but where people struggle with it, it's like where athletes like they just can't make that transition. What happens?
Well, I'll tell you what I think is a big challenge for a lot of guys is when, especially guys that play at a high level, that's all they're used to, right? They only know playing, whether it's football or whatever particular business they're in. They only know operating in that sphere at the highest level. So it's very hard for them when they start a new chapter to start back from the bottom, right? We all started from the bottom of the barrel as athletes. I mean, we were high school football players, trying to make varsity team, not very glamorous, not on TV. Everyone always sees the guys playing in the NFL, making big money, playing in Super Bowls. They always see you at the top, but there was a journey to get there. So the assumption that in your next chapter, you just automatically are going to start. And I think that's the misconception. Everyone's like, man, only 2 years in, you got to call the Super Bowl. What a fast rise. Well, what they didn't see was 10 years ago, I'm doing shows that not a soul probably even watched on local Fox Sports South and local Fox affiliates in regional markets that my mom and dad watched and my wife watched it. So the notion that you're an overnight success is only to those who don't know what work goes in before it. So I think what a lot of guys struggle is when they want to pursue something post their playing career, very few guys, there's a handful of guys that have the resume that can just fill those big time seats from day one. The vast majority of us, you got to put the work in on maybe some non-glamorous, some lower level things, and be willing to go back to your roots of working and grinding and building your way back up. So I think guys have a false perception of, what the reality of the real world is, and that they're not just handing out seats to people just because they like you or just because you were a good football player. There's an expectation of performance, no different than there was in your primary career, which was your playing career. So I think that's the biggest struggle guys have, is they're not willing to climb that ladder again in a new industry.
Humble.
It's very hard. It's very hard, especially guys who played it for a long time at a high level, to think you're going to go back and not just be at the top of the totem pole anytime is a big transition.
How much time do you have to put in per week to prep for a game you're announcing now versus the amount of time you prep watching video and stuff for actual real football game? I'm just curious how much time, what prep work it takes to get out there and be ready.
It takes a lot, right? It takes a lot. You have to be able to talk about a 3-hour live sporting event that no matter how much prep you do, no matter how much, film study or reports, or you write out your storylines and you kind of you have no idea what's actually going to happen. You have to just be able to adjust on the fly, injuries, storylines, score change. You thought it was going to be a blowout one way, and then as we all have seen in the NFL this year, it could be a blowout the other. And you have to be able to talk on live television for 3 hours, regardless of the path the game goes down. You can't control the game. You have to react to the game. So I think in order to be prepared to do that, if you don't put the preparation in, it's pretty evident. I think people can see through it. I think the viewers say, okay, this guy's been practicing these storylines all game, but they don't match what's actually playing out on the field. And I think that's where people get themselves in trouble. It's a different animal than when I was a player. Right? That was a 7-day a week. You're living, breathing it, eating it. If you're not practicing it, you're working out, you're training, you're watching tape. That's a whole nother level of preparing, year round and whatnot. But during the season, you're talking 3-4 hours a day of good. I'm talking like real study, not like casual, put the game on and drink a beer. I'm talking like true game film, study, build out your notes, build out your scouting reports. And I've enjoyed it. That's the part of it has been cool for me, because I'm not just studying the opposing team's defense like I was when I was playing. I'm studying the entire picture of how this team needs to go into the game and operate. All sides of the ball, coaching decisions, game management. So it's a little bit more of like a holistic approach to studying football, and I've enjoyed that.
Yeah. Awesome. So obviously you use your platform, your star power to create the Heartest Yard. When did you know that going into building that foundation was going to be something that was going to be an integral part of your life? Like, was it your idea? Did somebody bring it to you? How did that all happen?
Yeah, so it really, our kind of transition into philanthropy really just started personally. We started it back in 2009 when I was living in Chicago. We started our family's foundation, and at the time it was centered around breast cancer awareness. My mom was a breast cancer survivor, and I was a young player in Chicago at the time, and we had the opportunity to partner with some really good organizations and raise some money. And that was really our first kind of dip our toe in the water of the world of philanthropy. And then in 2012, shortly after I had gotten traded here, 2012, our son TJ, we found out that he was going to be born with a very serious congenital heart defect. So he went through his first couple open heart surgeries. And then shortly after he kind of got through that initial tough few months, my wife and I said, this is our passion. This is our purpose. This was something that we were given to make an impact on. And TJ's doing awesome. He eventually went on to have a heart transplant. So it really was a personal journey for us to say, hey, we were fortunate. We had resources. We had opportunities and access to amazing world-class healthcare right here in Carolina, in Charlotte. How can we enable the people coming behind us on a similar path to have even better opportunities, to have even better resources, to have even better care? And that was really the entire inspiration of the Heartest Yard. And we just celebrated our 10th anniversary. We've committed over $6 million to Levine Children's Hospital here in Charlotte. And it's something that we live. It's something that we breathe on a daily basis. And we're continuing to find new ways to expand. We're continuing to find new partners to help us grow. And it's been something that we found a lot of purpose in. And it's been something that we take great pride in.
I guess it's almost, it's like starting your own business, right? There's an entrepreneurial aspect to it. How hard was it? Man,
it is.
It seems easier, right? Like, I'm starting a fleet. I just ask for money. People, it just comes to the door. But I doubt with anything, it's never as easy as what it seems. Just And great people tend to make things look easy, but it's actually really not. So
it's very similar to what I would imagine. I'm not a small business owner in the traditional sense, but I would imagine it's a very similar path. A little bit different. There's some different kind of legalities. You have to operate by different standard rules. The IRS is obviously involved. There's nonprofit compliance issues that you have to kind of operate and deal with, which, as we know, with anything, compliance and all that is it's a pain in the ass. But all being said, growing it from scratch, we raised our first dollar in the spring of 2013. And, from there to just see the growth and to see our programs continue to expand. We started as an in-home nursing program where it was just our responsibility to fund the hospital administration would operate a team of nurses that would go into the homes of these families that brought their child home after cardiac surgery at a young age. And we just had to make sure the bills were paid. It was pretty cut and dry. We were a fundraising arm. And then over the years, we expanded. We brought a neurodevelopment clinic. Then we expanded. We funded the largest project to date. We funded a $2.5 million project where we built a 20,000 square foot plus inpatient. So now we got to the inpatient care where now families can bring their children into our heart clinic for all their post-op care and all their follow-ups and whatnot. So we've continued to kind of reinvent ourselves as a foundation when the hospital has directed us to a particular need or a particular gap in the system. And like any other small business, I would imagine there's that ability to improvise and that ability to be nimble and light on your feet and change with the times. Some programs that we've started didn't do great, didn't get great reception. And then some of the smaller events and some of the things that we didn't think too highly of at the time have become our biggest and most popular and most successful endeavors. So like anything, it's hard to predict, but we try not to say no to a lot. And then as we go, we kind of fine tune and find the things that best serve our families.
Yeah, same thing here. Like some of the dumbest ideas I've had here were blown up, and some ideas I thought were absolute dimes. Or just, fell flat on their face. So it's funny how that works. I think the key is just keep trying things.
Totally.
In business in general. Speaking of business, I know you've got various businesses and things you got your hands in. So what did you learn from sports throughout your career that have been most valuable as you've kind of ventured out into this world?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is I don't get involved with anything that I'm not passionate in or that I don't have like a true, like I don't truly enjoy whatever the market is, whatever the world is. I don't just throw my money at things for the sake of it. It could be the greatest idea in the world, but if it's not something I understand, if it's not something that I have an interest in living and breathing on a regular basis, I don't get involved with it. I try not to waste my time outside of my sphere of interests. And I think what that allows me to do is when there is time allocated towards a particular business or my foundation or whatever it is, I make sure that to me, that time is super valuable. So if I'm going to carve out hours out of my day to allocate towards something, I better be doing it in something that I'm happy to do, that I'm enjoying, that I have a passion of pursuing. To just tag my name on something that takes up my time is not really something that I'm overly interested in. So I think finding things that connect with me, finding things that motivate me, finding things that I'm willing to spend and take away time from other things to pursue has to be really something that I get, that I love, that I can eat and breathe. And that's kind of my number one rule. And if it doesn't check those boxes, it could be the greatest company in the world. It could be the greatest project in the world. I'm just not willing to allocate my time to it.
It takes a lot of discipline.
I used to be terrible at it, and I'm still not great. I've tried to get better at not trying to be a part of everything. But that's been a little bit of a work in progress for sure.
What are you working on now that you're excited about that's not well known to the public? Is there anything?
We have a really cool project. So we talked coming on about the podcast space and the podcast world. One of my biggest interests in my life is obviously sports, but more particularly just youth sports, right? I'm a dad. I grew up with the son of a coach. I've lived it my whole life. And about 2 years ago, me and a couple of buddies, we started a content production company called Audiorama. And our first big project was called You Think. And it was a podcast that I hosted. We recorded about 45 episodes, and they were conversations with athletes, parents, coaches, league administrators, really just everybody that's involved in the complex of youth sports in America, which for anyone who's raising a kid or coaching in that world realizes that it is vastly different from how any of us grew up and experienced. And we just thought there's a lot of families out there looking for education, looking for information on how to best navigate it. And from that podcast experience, we've sensed that there's a larger play out there. We're in the process of building you think out into actually like a large publishing complex where there's a variety of contributors, a variety of content providers in the audio space, the video space, newsletters, education, training, and bringing it into one central location and building out that platform that can be a resource to families, coaches, people that are trying to go out there and just raise a kid or coach a team or navigate whatever the level of impact is. So I'm pretty excited about that. Again, a lot of work, a lot of moving parts, a lot of connecting of different relationships and dots. But I'm excited to see how that plays out here towards the end of the year.
You said it's different. You literally took the next question out of my mouth because it's very, very different. I have a 9, 6, and a 2.5-year-old. So they're not all in sports as much yet, but it is way different now. I mean, you and I are similar age. I'm a little bit older than you, but like, is it better? It's different, but is it better than what it used to be? I mean, now it's like, I think to win a game, you just have to show up at the game, and like, there's all these cliches, but is it better?
I think it's all depends on how you define better and which lane of the youth sports kind of dynamic are you living in, right? So I think, like anything, as time goes on, there's more opportunities. There's more different layers to youth sports today than there were when we grew up. When we grew up, you played for your town team. Whatever season it was, you played a sport in that season. And then when that season ended, your calendar rolled over to the winter. You played winter sports and the calendar flipped over to the spring. And you just did that until you got into school sports and you played for your local high school. That was the path that 95% of the people went through. That's all that was there. Now you can play anything from introductory rec where you don't really practice. You just show up to one game on Saturday or Sunday. You play with your friends. One of the moms or dad's coaches, and everybody goes for ice cream after, which is fine.
Yep.
And then you also can play on the cutthroat travel ball cuts. Your kid gets benched, travel around the country, spend thousands of dollars a weekend. You never play locally, and any given weekend your kid could be replaced, and you're playing high level competitive sports as young as 8, 9, 10 years old. There's everything from those two levels and everything in between. So as far as what's better, I don't know. I mean, are there more opportunities for kids to get better coaching, to get better training, to get better development? Absolutely. Kids now at a younger age are far introduced to far better coaching, far better instruction and development, especially from a skill component for their sport than they ever have been in the past. There's more access to that. Coaching is better. It's just that. And is it better that kids aren't getting that local team, local town experience? I guess that's up for each family to decide. It all depends on what is your ultimate goal, right? What is your ultimate goal of your kid being exposed to sports? Mine could be very different from yours, could be very different from somebody down the street. And I think it's on each family to figure out what is the ultimate goal. Do you want your kid to make the middle school team? Do you want your kid to just have fun and be amongst his friends? Do you want your kid to go to college? Whatever those things are, you have to make then decisions that are in the best interest of whatever that perceived goal is of the future. And I think every family struggles with that exact question. And I think that's why there's so many people kind of lost in this crazy world of navigating youth sports.
Was also too like every season they're a different team. So that's my situation. It's like you can never really be able to build that team atmosphere, which I thought was so awesome growing up. You have the same team, you play with them all every year. You grow together. Now my kids plays baseball or soccer every year. Is a complete change up. Let me ask you a question. So I've obviously you coach your kids, you're super involved in that. What is more satisfying? Is watching your kids win championships today or when you were winning when you were younger?
Oh, watching my kids. Oh, there's no question. I mean, I'm coaching my son's Pop Warner football team. It's a 12-year-old football team. So there's 6th and 7th graders. And we're in the middle of our season right now. On Saturday, we just played for the city championship, which is like the Mecklenburg County, Greater Charlotte region, Pop Warner League. And we won that. And now in 2 weeks, we go to Virginia to start the regionals. And last year we took the team up, 11U team, made it all the way down to Florida. Like, obviously we do a lot of baseball and watching your kids go out there and compete against some of the best kids in the country. And it's a long weekend. And I love watching my kids compete. I have one rule with my kids. I will go anywhere, do anything to support you as long as you want to be there. Yep. I'm not wasting my weekend every time. I'm not wasting all my time to do something. I don't need to do this. I did this for 30 years. I don't need to live this out anymore. I will live it and breathe it and eat it alongside you if you really want to do it. So that's number one. We're not wasting anybody's time. And number two, you better have a great attitude, and you better approach it with everything you've got. Win, lose, or draw, best player, worst player. We can figure out how all that. If your attitude's going to be bad, you're going to be a poor sport, and you're going to sulk when things get hard, and you're going to quit when things get hard, I have zero patience for that. So those are our only 2 rules. We'll teach you how to throw. We'll teach you how to catch. You strike out. You drop a ball. Fine. We can coach all that. I'm not coaching attitude. I'm not coaching fighting when things get hard. I'm not coaching how to compete. That stuff is a non-negotiable in our world of sports. And the rest of it, I live and die for my kids. I want them to find success. I want them to learn the connection between hard work and results.
That's the same in business, right? That's the same thing I teach my employees, right? Like, market sucks right now, right? Nothing you can do about it, right? You got to come with a positive attitude, work hard, want to be here. So I think that translates throughout life in general. Do you want your kids to go through the same experience, college, professionals, all stuff you want to see them do, if they want to do it, of course?
If they wanted to do it, great. I have no expectations that my kids are going to be professional athletes. I have no expectations that my kids are going to be college athletes. I want my kids, everything. I say this all the time to the teams we coach. Our goal right now, and again, our kids are getting close to this, so it's a little more relevant than they were a little bit younger, but my kids are in 5th and 6th grade right now. My goal is I would love if each one of my kids can make the middle school team.
Yeah.
Make the middle school football team, girls soccer, girls basketball, boys, whatever it is. I have 2 boys and a girl. So across all, make a team. Be part of that team. Be part of the fabric of the athletic department at your school. Take pride in wearing your school's jersey. Work towards a common goal. Overcome adversity. To me, you can't replicate real world struggle and real world success like you can through sports, especially at the young age. Right? They're not in the workplace. It's really the only really chance for kids to learn the real world dynamics is through sports at a young age. And then one day, play on the varsity high school team. I'm such a strong proponent of high school sports and experience. And yes, you want to win state championships and you want to, yes. But man, there's nothing better than playing with your buddies. There's nothing better than playing with your school across your chest. There's nothing better than a Friday night when the entire town comes to watch you. Like, to me, that's the best. And then every level that you go up, it becomes less and less that and more of a business. And I look back to my high school days as some of my best football memories. Playing with your buddies on a Friday night in front of 2,000 people, we were heroes, and then you go on to college and it got a little more serious. And every year in the NFL, it got more serious. But I wish that for my kids. Yeah. Whatever path that takes them on is great. And they could come off the bench. They could be the starter. They could be the 6th man, or they could be the star point guard. I don't know.
Yeah.
I would love for them to experience that in some capacity because I just think it's so special.
I think it is too. Back to that. So I always think the right coach, mentor, teacher can have a profound impact on a person's life. If you're thinking back about, from your early days of Pop Warner all throughout college and professionals, what coach or mentor did you have that you think made the biggest impact on you? And then the next part of that is, what of that do you use today as you teach youth?
Yeah, I think I've been really fortunate that, I grew up around athletics. My dad was for 40 years was the local high school football coach of the school that me and my brothers-in-law, we all went and played for him. And all 3 of us went on to play in college. We were fortunate. We grew up around it. We were in his locker room from when we were 5 years old. We were the water boys and then the ball boys. And then we couldn't wait to the day that we were on the freshman team, get to wear the uniform. And our dream, our whole lives, was to play varsity football at our local high school. That was our Super Bowl. That was our dream. We never talked about playing in college until we got into high school. We never grew up saying, man, I'm going to be a professional football player. It never was discussed. We lived and died to one day play high school varsity football in our town at my dad's school. That was it. What was cool growing up is my dad never coached us in football until we got to high school because he was always coaching his team. But a lot of the local coaches were his former players that would move back home during after college or whatever. And then they would come volunteer at the local. So all the kids that when we were little played for my dad. Now in middle school, towards middle schools, we're getting ready to play, a little more competitive football in the local area. We're being coached by all my dad's former players and guys that we knew since we were 4 years old. So that was always cool. And then obviously through high school with my dad, he obviously introduced us to the game. He introduced us, to work ethic and things are going to be hard. And he's like an old school guy from the sense of he's not really into the feelings and, worrying about how everybody, we're going to work. Yeah. We're going to learn that the harder it is probably the more worthwhile it is. And we're going to grind through it, and it's going to all be worth it in the end. And that was his approach. It's still his approach to this day. And obviously that was my foundation. That was where I learned everything that I carried with me. And then, obviously at different stops of my career, I was coached by great guys in college at the University of Miami, where, we had some of the best coaches, in the country. And then, just different position coaches. When I got to the NFL, my position coach, Rob Morris, was my tight end coach. And then here, Pete Hainer is my tight end coach in Carolina. I still talk to those guys to this day. So I think at every stage of my development, I had the appropriate person there to coach me and push me and get me past whatever that next hurdle was. But it was all laid on the foundation that I was exposed to, at a young age, just being around hard. And I think that's something that we're so afraid for our kids to be exposed to hard things. We're so worried about everybody's feelings. And we're so worried about, and I get it, right? It's a different time it's a different day and age. What went on 20 years ago would not fly today. I understand that. But I also think hard is good. Yeah. I think hard is, the earlier you can learn to deal with hard, the easier it gets to deal, because hard's coming. Whether we want to shield our kids from it now or not, hard's coming. And it might come in high school, it might come in college, it might come your first job, your first boss, your first marriage, whatever it is, hard is coming. I always say I'd rather my kid have a hard day at 10 than his first hard day at 19.
100%.
Because it's going to be a different experience coming home crying to mommy and daddy at 10. And let's talk about it as we lay in bed. Then you deal with your first adversity, or your first boss that gets on you, or your first time you get fired, or whatever it is. And you're 19, 20 years old, and you're going home it's a different stage in your life.
Easy times create weak men, right? That's the saying.
I believe that.
Big time. Yeah, I believe that. I totally believe that. One of the things that we really care about here at Loan Pronto, and generally speaking with all of our clients, is financial literacy. And, I feel strongly that the average middle school or high school or college kid is wholly unprepared for the real world when it comes to finances, credit, buying houses. I know that it happens a lot in pro athletes, where they get out and they're just financially in bad shape right off the bat. I feel like we're doing our kids a disservice and stuff. So obviously you're in a different situation. I think you've done really well through your life. So what can we do differently in terms of teaching our kids and our athletes about financial literacy, and what advice maybe would you have for somebody who was going through what you went through and is getting ready to go to the real world? What advice would you impart?
Yeah, so I think just generally speaking, take the athlete component out of it, because that's a little bit of a different animal. We can get to that in a second. But just generally speaking, even just as a dad of young kids now in middle school, I think we could just do a better job as society through our education system. Obviously, a lot of it falls on our responsibility of just the parents at home, of just exposing the kids to what the real world of financial literacy and what that real world of budgeting, and what does credit mean, and how do you one day apply for a loan if one day you do want to apply for a loan. You don't just magically wake up one day. There's a series of events that make you a better or worse candidate to be approved. I don't think we do a great job in our education system teaching kids true skills that apply to the real world. I mean, the things that we spend time teaching kids in school these days are great. It's the day after you take the test to move on to the next subject. It's the last time you ever hear about the Mayan civilization, unless you become a historian. I mean, and again, I'm not saying we don't want to expose kids to, real world and expose them to culture and all that, because I believe that shapes their vision, it shapes their perspective of, their life. But at the same time, I do think we can allocate a little time into our day and into our education system, where we teach kids things that are going to last them the rest of their lives and lead to a lot more stability, a lot more happiness, a lot more mental health, positive mental health. Because at the end of the day, finances are the root of a lot of people's struggle. It's the root of a lot of people's happiness. And I think in a lot of ways, as a culture and a society, we do a bad job servicing that. As far as the athletic component of it, what's unique about professional sports is it's really the only occupation where we tilt the pyramid upside down, right? When you enter the real world, it's set up in a way that your first job, you can make dumb decisions because typically you're at the lowest earnings of your life, and you can work out all the kinks in your 20s. And then as you start getting older and theoretically climbing up and your salary and your compensation grows over time, I guess, generally speaking, I guess. So if you make bad decisions in your 20s, they're bigger decisions. They're bigger problems. You don't have time to kind of work the kinks out and then say, all right, but by the time I'm 30 and now I'm really earning, I'm supporting my family. Okay, now I've got all the bad decisions out, a couple of years ago, but I didn't have that much money to make bad decisions with to begin with. It's a very warped reality. I don't know how you prepare kids for that. I don't think anyone's mastered that. I think colleges and programs are trying, but I think that's the slight difference with professional athletes and why their stories seem to be so magnified. Is it's just a completely different experience than how the rest of the general public experiences the acquisition of resources at particular stages of their life.
Absolutely. What would you say the single most important trait you see in successful people is?
That's a really good question. I think there's a very fine line of being very sure of yourself and very sure of your capabilities, your qualities, and just no one can think you're better than you think you are. No one's expectations can be higher than you. No one's standards can be higher than your own. And I think we have a lot of people, and this is probably a larger conversation, but I think we have a lot of people that are heavily motivated by external factors, fear, money, there's a
bazillion think about them.
People's opinion, perception. I think the strongest leaders, I think the most successful people have an internal desire to be good at everything they do. And I think if you have a desire to be good at everything you do, and that's as a dad, as a husband, whatever your occupation is, at all aspects of your life, if you have just a burning desire every day that you only expect to be great at everything, doesn't mean you're gonna be, but that's the level you hold yourself to. Everything else is a result of that approach. The money will come. The promotions at work will come. Success will come. Healthy life. It's funny how everything just kind of falls into place. I think we, as a society, we are so caught up in the end result. We are so caught up in what job I get. We are so caught up in how much money I can make. We are so caught up in how many games we're going to win. I tell my kids all the time in the teams we coach, we are going to win as a byproduct of everything we do. We don't talk about winning. We don't talk about winning championships. We talk about we need to get in a good stance. We need to hold the bat the right way. We need to listen at practice. We need to be on time. If we do all these things, and there's a million of them, if we do all these things consistently well every day, the winning part's the easy part. And you could apply that to everything in your life. And I think so often we're so worried about the finish line. Man, what job am I going to get? Just wake up on time. Go to school on time. What test? I'd say it to my kids all the time. I got a big test next week. Okay. What are you going to do today? What you do today, tomorrow, the next day will determine when you walk into that test, whether you do well or not. You don't just wake up on the test day and say, man, I hope I do good.
Yeah.
Everyone is so worried about instant gratification and the end game. And I think the best people that I've been around are almost obsessed with personal greatness every single day and everything they do. And that could be a borderline obsession. It could be also...
It could be bad.
It could be bad as well. But I think the people that harness it and can find that balance, I don't think it's a mystery that success follows people with that approach.
Yeah, no doubt. I say my thing is determination.
Yeah.
That's my biggest trait. If I think about my great employees, it's like the determination, the ability to just never quit.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay, so we have a little lightning round thing here. Pretty simple. We ask you a question. Answer it.
Yeah.
QB you'd most like to play with in the NFL today?
Today, Mahomes.
Social media, net good or net bad?
Bad.
Will soccer ever be bigger than football in the U.S.? Okay. All right. Player that you idolized the most growing up?
Jerry Rice.
Okay. Best advice you would give 18-year-old Greg?
In one word?
You can give a couple.
Here. Yeah. I mean, I think I wish I could tell. I guess it's what I tell my own kids now, and they don't think Dad knows what he's talking about. Obviously, it's always easy to give yourself advice, right? Hindsight. But I think I would tell myself to just like appreciate where you are when you're 18, right? I think when I think back to myself at 18, all I was thinking about was graduate high school, go play in college. And like you look back and you're like, man, to be 18 again. Just enjoy being 18. Yes. And just, so I guess to answer your question quickly would be like, just kind of be where you are. Where you're going is going to come, whether you expedite it and try to rush it or not, it's coming. Whether you like it or not, it's coming. So don't rush it and don't dread it. Just live where you are, enjoy what's happening in your life now. It very well could be the best times of your life. You don't know. It could be the worst. We don't know what's coming down the road, but we know it's coming.
Yeah.
So I think at 18-year-old me, I was probably so ready to get out of high school and get to college and move on to bigger and better things. And you look back and you're like, man, that was some of the best times of your life because you only get it once. So enjoy being an 18-year-old kid because you have no idea what the real world has in store for you. Things just get harder as you get older.
Yeah. Well, so I appreciate it. I want to ask you, is there anything that my audience can look for, upcoming events or things they can do to support your the Heartest Yard? Yeah,
they can go to heartestyard.org, our foundation website, and Google it. It's Heartest Yard, HEART, like heart, and then EST, the Heartest Yard. And we have we have volunteer opportunities, we have fundraising opportunities, we have community events throughout the entire calendar year. So they can find all the information about the work we do and the manner in which we do it on our website. And that's probably the easiest way to stay up to speed. They can follow, on social media. They can follow us on Instagram and me personally or the foundation. And a pretty good way to keep track of what we're doing.
I appreciate your time then.
Yeah, thanks so much. I enjoyed it.
All right, buddy.